Hey y'all, welcome back. Today our topic is about biomes, and we've heard this word biome before, but we're going to go into more detail about the 7 major biomes of our biosphere, which is Earth, today. So our objective is to be able to compare and contrast the 7 major biomes on Earth. Okay, so we're going to talk about what a biome is, what helps categorize a biome. As y'all know, I always start off with where we are in the calendar. Today we should be watching on the 23rd. Just so y'all know, the 24th is another bad weather makeup day, so you actually don't have to do any work on Friday. So I will post the lessons and the quiz on Thursday, and it's all due, again, we're going to make it due Monday, so you have a little bit extra time. But we're going to continue with our normal lessons next week on Monday and Thursday as well. So if we look at these 3 pictures of different biomes, what do you notice is different about them? Hopefully in your mind you are saying one has a lot of vegetation, which is the one I'm talking over to the right in the top corner. Another one has maybe less vegetation. That word vegetation just means a diversity, a large number of plants and different types of plants. This one has less diversity of plants, but if you can tell wherever giraffes are, there's also going to be maybe in the safari lots of other types of animals. So they have a high diversity of different animals. While down here in the bottom, we don't really have a high diversity of plants or animals. Okay, and so these are going to be 3 different major biomes. So a biome is just a region of the Earth, but it has to be classified by its climate, by its plants, and animals. Okay, so basically a biome is something that is classified by living things, such as plants and animals, non-living things, and non-living includes climate. But if you see climate, it's probably talking about the biome. So over here we have a bunch of different types of biomes, but today we are going to talk about the 7 major biomes. So this would normally be a turn and talk, but we're just going to stop and think. How does climate influence plant growth? And climate is basically just like the weather and maybe temperature, things like rainfall, how much it rains. And how does it influence plant growth and how many, or the diversity of the plant growth? Terrestrial biomes are basically mainly defined by climate and plants. So if the climate has high temperatures and also a lot of rainfall, it's going to equal a lot of different types of plants. And so that is also, we like to say, a high diversity. That diversity just means a lot of different types. Okay, so if it is the opposite, if it's a low temp with little rainfall, it's going to obviously not have a lot of plants and have a low diversity of plants. Okay, so keep that in mind as we begin going through these. Another major influence on biomes and climate is where that part of the Earth falls in terms of our Earth, our globe. There's a couple things that I want to make sure that we know. We need to know that the equator is in the middle of the Earth. Now, I'm going to go over this in the next slide, but the Earth is not like this all the time. It's on a tilt. Okay, so we're going to see that in just a second. But I want you to remember that our Earth is on a tilt. But there are 3 major zones that I need y'all to remember. Okay, up at the top we have the polar zone, and at the bottom we have the polar zone. So there's really only 3 zones. Again, both poles, north or south pole, is going to be the polar zone. Now in our middle, we have the temperate zone, and temperate kind of means like in the middle. And then in the center, we have what is the tropics. And the tropics is going to be the hottest area. And so as we go to the edge of the Earth, we are getting cooler. And as we are coming closer to the middle of the earth, we are getting hotter. Okay, and I want you to remember that as we go to the next slide. Now again, our earth is slightly on a tilt, so it's not 100% equal. It's on this like slight tilt, as you can kind of see here. So when we're thinking about this, we need to think, why is the center, why is the equator the hottest point on earth? It's because the sun is actually striking the earth at a direct point. If this is our sun and this is rays of sun, these sun rays are going to hit at a lower angle, while these are going to be direct. So the higher they are on the poles, the less direct sunlight they will be getting. And that kind of brings us into our first topic, our first biome. This is our major biome. In the corner, I'll always have a map of where this biome can be found in the earth. But obviously, as you can probably tell just from looking at this and from hopefully previous conversations, our equator is right here. And so tropical rainforests, that's one of their distinct characteristics, is they are found mainly at the equator. They're the closest biome to the equator. And there's a couple things that are really unique to it. Now, I like to start with what kind of animals you think you can identify here. Obviously, in this picture, we have a sloth. When I think of a tropical rainforest, I often think of monkeys. Another one could be different types of lizards or reptiles, lizards and snakes. But then you also have to think about the trees. There are a lot of trees. There's also mosses that are growing on the ground, and even orchids and other types of producers, things that are going to produce energy. And this is because, again, like we talked about, a couple reasons. The tropical rainforest is near the equator, which also means that it has high temps and lots of rainfall. So not only is it hot, again, this just means hot, it is also quite moist. So it's very humid or moist there, which means it has that very productive canopy. It has a high species richness or diversity. But its temperatures are pretty stable. So it's stable temps. You don't think about the rainforest going through winter. So stable temperatures, even though they're hot, they have stable temps all year round. Okay? And that's what you need to know about the rainforest. Now I'm going to hopefully pick up the pace now that we know kind of what we're expecting for each of these biomes. The next one I have is desert. When we think about, again, I'm going to always start with what kind of animals we can think of. So animals, hopefully you're thinking of snakes, lizards. There's even like foxes. They call them kit foxes. And there's other types of producers, but they're mainly cacti or like small little shrubs or bushes, and those are called specifically creosote bushes. Okay. Now you can probably tell from this picture, low rainfall. So that means that it's dry, very, very dry. And we like, in terms of climate, we like to think of the desert as hot, right? Always hot, but it's usually only hot during the day. And it can actually cool off at night. So don't always think of it as just hot. Okay? And that's kind of it for deserts. But notice where they are on the map really quickly. This would be our equator. Oh, why is it not showing up? Right here. So they're still relatively around the equator, but they're also in different spots on north and south of the equator. So my next one is going to be the savanna. And people often refer to this as the savanna desert. But when you think of like an African safari or an African ecosystem, this is often where you would find this. It can also be found in parts of Australia and a little bit in South America. But it is similar to deserts, but it is a little bit more diverse in the types of animals and the types of plants that we're going to have. So hopefully when you're thinking of different types of animals, there's different types of grazing animals that are going to feed on these different types of grasses, these dry grasses. So you could think of like bison. That doesn't show up very well. I'll do it in red. Bison. Obviously we have elephants here, but there are giraffes, lions. You could think of pretty much any African animal, wildebeest, gazelles, leopards. Those are all going to be found here. And obviously we can already tell from this picture there are grasses. So that's going to be one of our plants. There are also these scattered trees. If you see those are called scattered. Well, they're scattered because that means there's few, but they are called deciduous trees. And we're going to see these trees pop up in a different biome, but they're scattered. And there's also some shrubs, scattered shrubs as well. Okay. It's basically like a large grassland. So I'm going to put up here like grasslands because, you know, there's mainly grass that covers it. But the reason that it's able to have a little bit more diversity than a typical desert is because there is more rainfall than in a desert. And this note that just popped up is there's actually less rainfall than the temperate biome that we're about to talk about, the temperate grasslands in the next one. So just know that it's more rainfall than a desert, but less than temperate. And the reason, and it also has an alternating wet and dry season. Okay, so this temperate deciduous forest is actually one of the first ones that you might recognize. If you've ever been to the East Coast of the United States, the Carolinas, Georgia, Virginia, West Virginia, and kind of up the East Coast, as you can see kind of slightly in this map, that is where you might see these beautiful colored trees. Now, this is our temperate deciduous forest. And the cool thing about it is that it is one of the first biomes that we've seen that has distinct seasons. And that means they have a winter, summer, spring, and fall. Now, when you think of this kind of forest, hopefully when you think of forest, the types of animals that you might see are going to be bears, wolves, and deer. A lot of people like deer hunting. They are going to have, it's called deciduous because the types of plants they have is they have deciduous forests, so they have deciduous trees. We talked about those before, which means they lose their leaves in the fall. So again, deciduous trees means they lose leaves in fall, which is what causes this beautiful colored picture that we have. And so there's different types of trees. There are, if you've ever heard like a maple tree, this would also oak, birch, lots of different types of trees. Because they have distinct seasons, that means they are kind of in the middle of everything. So they have a moderate rainfall, which kind of means it depends, the amount of rain they get is season dependent. So obviously in the spring, they're going to have a high rainfall, but in the winter, in the summer, it's going to be a little bit lower. And so moderate rainfall, I'm going to write that's dependent on seasons. And that's kind of it for our temperate deciduous forest. Now our fifth one is kind of the one that I thought was next. It's the temperate grasslands. I talked about this when we talked about the savanna, because they are actually quite similar. So the tropical savanna and the temperate grasslands are both types of grasslands. The only difference is that the savanna is hotter than this. So this is going to be, this temperate grassland is cooler than the savanna. So there's a couple things that make it distinct. The first being, we're going to start with animals first, sorry. So our temperate grasslands are going to have our similar grazing animals. I'm just going to put grazing animals because we have this beautiful, obviously grass because it's a grassland, like bison. And so we're going to have similar animals that are going to be grazing animals, cows, and other things. There's few trees. So in terms of our producers, few trees, but obviously lots of grasses. Okay. If you look at our map, one kind of defining feature is it's mainly in the interior of continents, meaning that it's inside the continent. And so that actually is very indicative of its low rainfall. So it doesn't get a lot of rain, but that makes it actually a very rich and fertile soil. Which results in it being a lot of farmlands and used for agriculture. But because it's low in rainfall, there are occasional wildfires. And in terms of temperature, they have very, very cold winters. Can you see that? Cold winters and warm summers. Okay. Our sixth of the 7 major biomes, and I always pronounce this wrong. I always pronounce it like taiga or something, but I want you to think of this person like taiga. It is pronounced like taiga, and it is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But as you can see, it is quite in the north, mainly, from our little map here. And so it is a little, it's sort of like a hostile environment, but still can be very, very beautiful in the summers. So some of the different animals that you might find here, if you think of like northern Alaska or even Canada, things that you would find there, those are going to be moose, bears, wolves. If you've ever seen like a lynx, it looks like a little, like a mountain lion. Hares, like bunnies. We need some secondary consumers. And the main producers are going to be these really big trees right here, which are conifer trees. So we call them coniferous trees. It looks really, really beautiful here, but in the winter, it does snow in the winter. And although it's not all the way at the north like this would be, we're going to talk about what this one is last. It is south of that area, but north of the temperate forest. So it's nutrient poor soil. So those rich soils that we talked about in the temperate grasslands, it's not there. It's actually has quite poor nutrients in its soil. But there are many species of animals that hibernate because it has a very, very cold winter. So hibernating animals. And so this would be our last one. This is our tundra. This is the one we were just talking about. It's going to be north, the highest that we can possibly get. And it is very, very cold. So we're going to start by talking about some of the animals that are going to be found there. These are things that I've never seen any of these in my life. But maybe a caribou. It's like a large mountain animal. Oxen. Owls, snowy owls specifically. They have Arctic foxes because this is almost in the Arctic. And they have different types of, like, not bunnies, but hares. They have a snowshoe hare. You can kind of see from this picture the different plants that they have are going to be grasses. Mosses, you can already see all of this moss right here. This is moss on these rocks. And then sedges. So there's different producers that we have in this climate. This climate is very, very cold. So there is very little rainfall. So it is dry, but it is also very cold. Dry and cold. When we went over the producers, you can obviously see that, and from this picture even, it is treeless. And it has a very short growing season, which is why the only thing that is available to grow are things that are low growing to the ground, like we talked about in primary succession. Things like mosses, small grasses, maybe some small shrubs. But then eventually when the cold winter comes back, it's going to immediately die off. And one kind of unique thing about this area is that it has something called permafrost. And I will write that right here. Permafrost. And it is ground that continuously remains frozen for 2 or more years. So it's a thick subsurface layer of the soil that remains frozen throughout the year. That is actually what results in a short growing season that we just talked about. Because it's so cold, this low layer of soil that is actually frozen because it's so chilly, that prevents a lot of trees and other things from growing. And so the tundra is considered a polar region. Okay? Okay, so this is actually a picture of all of our different biomes together. Now, if you look at this picture, you can obviously see we didn't talk about some of these. And you are completely right if you notice that. I'm going to circle some at the bottom that we didn't really talk about. The boreal forest, chaparral, polar ice, which just basically has no vegetation, mountains, but we talked about the rest of these, and although where you look is going to tell you that different areas are different biomes, so there's a lot of debate on where the lines are specifically drawn, but the basic 7 biomes are always going to be around, and I have shown you them today. On your own, I want you to kind of challenge yourself to pause the video. I'm going to give you the answers of where these are going to be found, but I want you to pause the video and make sure you try and explain why, okay? Why are these different animals found in these different biomes? So what I want you to do is for giraffe, I want you to think which biome would be best suited for the following organism. Okay, and I want you to think about that. There is a correct answer, and I will give you the answer in just a second. Okay, so if you said savanna, for this one you are correct. Okay, what about polar bear? We didn't really talk about polar bear, but from this picture you can probably, polar bear, okay, polar ice region. What about toucan? We didn't talk about toucan, but where would you find a toucan? If you said tropical rainforest, you are right. Scorpion. We didn't specifically talk about this one, but hopefully you're able to identify that would be found in the desert. And last one, pine tree. This is a specific type. I'll even give you a hint and let you know that a pine tree is a type of coniferous tree. And if you immediately in your head said, oh, that's taiga, you're right. Taiga. Okay, perfect. So your homework is not going to be a worksheet. I want y'all to dive into these biomes a little bit more. So I've created a brochure on Google Classrooms. So you do have a biomes brochure. And basically it's a Google Doc that you are going to go in and edit your answers into. And you just need to type, there are 4 different criteria, and you're going to go add your answers into there. You can change the picture. You can even do it on a piece of paper if you don't have access to Google Docs on your phone or your computer, wherever you are. You can even do this on a piece of paper, take a picture, and upload it to the assignment, whatever works best. If you want to draw out the different biome pictures, if you want to replace my pictures, if you want to do a whole different template, that's fine. I just need to make sure this information that is listed on that assignment is included. Again, I'm extending this. It's going to be due Monday because we have a bad weather makeup day on Friday. And so that is yeah, that's it for now. Now, one thing that I did forget to explain was the password for the exit ticket. There is going to be a password. I'm going to go back. The password is here. This is your permafrost is going to be your password for exit ticket. Okay, so your exit ticket password, if you got to the end of the video, is permafrost, all lowercase. Okay, hope you'll have a great day.